Welcome to the new podcast, In the Garden with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Ladner. I will aim to bring you top quality information on how to save open pollinated seeds, grow a garden, and preserve what you grow. Every Wednesday, I'll be sharing practical tips and techniques to help you on your journey to food security. Join me as I preserve the abundance of produce that my garden provides. Learn new ways of putting food away for the winter and some old ways that are from another century. You can find this podcast on Shopify and at my website. Come on, let's go wander down to the garden and awaken the dreams, history, and love that is held inside every seed. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of In the Garden with Susan. And we are in a massive heat wave here. I keep thinking that there's got to be rain coming. We have not had rain for a very long time. It feels like it's been weeks. And I see the clouds coming. And I talked to a friend in Toronto, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they were having a torrential downpour. And I know a lot of people in Ontario are getting rain, and it seems like everyone's getting rain, except we are not getting any rain here in BC. And so every time when I'm watering the garden in the morning and I see the clouds coming, I'm like, oh, there's going to be rain. And I just checked the weather, and it's actually even getting hotter. Like, it's hot right now. But on Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be 39 degrees both days. And so I don't know. I hope my fan, I've got both because I live off grid, and I just don't feel like putting the generator on right now to run the swamp cooler. I hope the fans are not interfering in the recording. But anyway, enough about how hot it is here. We're going to get into some edible flowers yet again. We are on the Flower Power Part 8, and I still have a massive list. And so we're going to keep going with this. But last time, I apologize for how I had to leave the podcast. The goats were up at my place, and it's a little bit of a situation. But anyway, because if they go down the road a bit, like there's a fence where the goats cannot get in, out my front door and down past the woodshed, and way down, it's all a fence that they can't get in. But if they walk down the road past my place and then go behind and a bit further, they could get in my garden. So I have to make sure they just don't get past my place. Anyway, so we were about to talk about mullein, and I have some really wonderful specimens of this growing out in my garden, and I keep them because I want them for the medicinal value, and I also sell them as seeds in my seed shop. And so this is a biennial plant, and it's well known for its medicinal properties. And it is tall with dense flowering spikes. And the flowers are usually yellow, and they are not only attractive, but they're also edible and beneficial. And my one super huge mullein, well, I guess they all get that big, but the one that I have growing down by, excuse me, down by my watering, my swimming pool, it is starting to flower, and I'm quite excited to be able to try eating some of these flowers. And so the mullein flowers are mild in flavor, and they're slightly sweet and aromatic, and they can be used in both culinary and medicinal contexts. And the flowers are most commonly used for their soothing properties, especially in teas and syrups. And so the flowers can be brewed into a tea to help soothe respiratory problems and reduce inflammation. The mullein flowers can be infused into oil and it's useful in treating earaches and skin inflammations. And I know that's not edible, but there we go. And so the flowers can also add subtle color and mild flavor to salads and desserts. So it can be used as a decorative addition. And so to preserve the mullein flowers, usually you dry them because this is the best way to retain their beneficial properties. And you can just spread them on a screen and dry them in a well ventilated area. And you can also preserve them in oil. They can be added into that. And so I wanted to know some recipes, but the mullein flowers are not commonly used due to their mild flavor. And so really we just have the mullein flower tea, and you want to steep the dried flowers in boiling water for about 10 minutes to create a soothing herbal tea. You can also make a syrup, and this would be effective against colds. So you want to simmer the fresh or dried mullein flowers in with water and honey. And I'm not sure if you could can that up or do something to preserve it for the winter. Like I know I don't really like to cook my honey, but maybe if you want to do some Googling and look that up, there might be some really good recipes to make your own cough syrup. And also, you can put the fresh mullein flowers sprinkled over salads for a hint of color and sweetness. And so, there are several species. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure why I can't talk today. Maybe it's just so hot. My mouth isn't working properly. Um, there are several species of mullein, and while they generally share similar properties, the flavor might vary subtly from slightly sweet to neutral. But these differences are not usually pronounced enough to, really detect them. And so, as always, you want to be very careful when harvesting. You don't want to take them from beside roadways in polluted areas or anywhere that's been treated with pesticides. And you want, when you're making them, make sure that the flowers are free from small insects that are often attracted to them. And I usually find that if I just harvest the flowers and then I just have them sitting there and whatever I collected them from, and I'll just leave them sit somewhere and I'll shake it. Usually the bugs will all vacate the premises pretty quickly. Well, it could take you like leave them for a while. And so also just a word of caution, as with any herb, it is advisable to start with small amounts to ensure that there are no adverse reactions, especially if using mullein for its medicinal purposes. And now this next one I wanted to include because I actually ate one of these this morning. I have onions growing in my strawberry patch. And just because I find it motivates me to water the strawberries when the strawberries are not producing in times like right now, even though the 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 ones that go all season, the everbearing, are starting to come in again. But there is that lull, and there are the varieties, the June bearing, that stop producing. And sometimes when I'm really tired and I have, so many things to try and keep alive, it's like I just don't feel like going and watering a strawberry patch that has no benefit coming. And so by planting some onions in with it, I always find that I'm motivated. Well, because you know what? Onions need water, and I like nice, big, juicy onions. So this morning I was in there, and there must have been an onion that got left from last year, and it was flowering. And I ate it on an empty stomach for breakfast. And it's funny, I can still taste onions at this point, and it's like hours later. But anyway, it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but it wasn't the time to eat it. I should have waited and put it in with the salad, for dinner. But it's onion flowers. And so the onion flowers are also known as onion blossoms, and they come from the various species of the onion family. And these flowers are not only beautiful with their spherical starry clusters, but they're also edible and flavorful. And so onion flowers have a mild onion flavor and can be eaten raw or cooked. And they add a delightful, subtle oniony taste and visual appeal to dishes. And I just want to say that onion flower I ate this morning, that was not subtle. And, I wouldn't exactly say it was delightful at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was silly to do. But with a salad, it would be great. And if it was broken up, I don't think you want to eat a huge, big flower head like I did. So there's several different ways that you can use the onion flowers. You can use them as garnishes, and their aesthetic appeal makes them excellent for garnishing salads, soups, and other dishes. You can use them for flavoring and infuse vinegars, oils, or you can also add them to butters. And then you can sprinkle them over salad by, pulling them all apart and sprinkle them. And they can also be sautéed lightly and added to dishes for a nice onion flavor. And so to preserve onion flowers, like this is really if you're not going to be saving them for seed. Like if you have a crop of onions and it's the only ones going to seed in your garden, you might as well let them go all the way through and collect the seed from them. Just putting that out there because I'm a seed saver. And so to preserve onion flowers, you can dry them. You can also pickle them. Onion flowers can be pickled in a vinegar solution, which preserves them and adds a tangy flavor. And this is a great addition to salads or as a condiment. And you can also freeze them, especially if you want to add the flowers into cooked dishes later on. And so some recipes that I found, an onion flower vinegar. You want to fill a jar with fresh onion flowers and cover with apple cider vinegar. Let it steep a few weeks, strain, and use in dressings and marinades. And then there's onion flower butter. Mix a finely chopped onion flower into softened butter. Add salt to taste and refrigerate. And then sautéed onion flowers. You just saute them in butter or oil until softened, and you can use them as a topping for meats or blend it into sauces. And so I wanted to know how the different varieties affect the flavor, and different onion varieties produce slightly different flavored flowers, although most are the typical onion taste. And so the white onion flowers tend to be somewhat sweeter. Red onion flowers have a more robust flavor, and scallion flowers are milder. And yeah, so there we go. Now, next is I ate another one of these flowers. Actually, last night, I was looking at them, and I knew I was going to be talking about them because I've been thinking a lot about the flowers. And so I just grabbed one of these guys and I ate it, and it was actually really nice. And it's the dill flowers. And so they are delicate aromatic bloom from the dill plant. And these flowers, along with the plant's leaves and seeds, are widely used in cooking for their unique flavor and aroma. And so the edible uses of dill flowers is that they can be used much like the herbs better known fronds and seeds, and they impart a slightly stronger dill flavor that is somewhat sweet and grassy. And so some uses for them are pickling, and everybody knows, we all know that really, that, they're famous for putting into a jar when you're making pickles, as they contribute both flavor and aesthetic appeal. And they can be added to the pickling liquid for cucumbers, carrots, beans, and other vegetables. And the flowers can be added to dishes like soups, stews, and broths, to infuse them with a dill flavor. And you can make infusions where the dill flowers can be used to make flavored vinegars or oils, and then used in dressings or as condiments, and also as a garnish. The flowers make an attractive garnish on salads or sandwiches or other dishes, depending on how big it is. I get some really big dill flowers going on, and I don't know how attractive that would be. So some of the recipes that I found was dill flower vinegar, and you take 1 cup of white wine vinegar and a handful of fresh dill flowers, and sterilize a glass jar. Place the dill flowers inside and pour the vinegar over them. Seal the jar and let sit in a cool, dark place for about 2 weeks. Strain the vinegar and use it in salads or marinades. And then there is a dill flower potato salad. And this sounds really good right now. And you have boiled potatoes, chopped onions, mayonnaise, mustard, salt, pepper, and a handful of chopped dill flowers. And you mix it all together, adding the dill flowers last and chill before serving. And then there's pickled dill beans, and we call these dilly beans. And you just take your green beans, vinegar, water, salt, garlic, cloves, mustard seeds, and dill flowers. And so you can blanch the green beans in boiling water, then cool in ice water. Pack the beans into jars with garlic, mustard seeds, and dill flour. Boil the mixture of vinegar, water, and salt, then pour it over the beans in the jars, seal, and process in a water bath for preservation. And you know what? I make dilly beans every year, and I have never blanched them before. I just put them in the jar and pour the hot the mixture over the top, the vinegar mixture over top, and that's that. And then I can them up in the steam canner. But that's just what I do. And so now for preserving dill flowers, you can dry them. So you could tie the dill flower stems together, hang them upside down in a warm, dry place. You can also freeze them, or you could also put them into frozen ice cubes, which are perfect for adding to soups and stews. And so I wanted to know if different varieties of dill have different tasting flowers, and they do. It's some subtle differences in flavors. And so if some dill varieties are bred specifically for their leaf yield and may have a milder flavored flowers, whereas others might be developed for their seeds and could exhibit a stronger, more robust flavor in all parts of the plant, including the flowers. And some other things that contribute to the different flavors are growing conditions, such as the soil quality, sunlight, water, and climate can affect the intensity and nuances of the flavor. And also the harvest time can affect it, as the younger flowers tend to be milder and more tender, while the mature flowers can develop a more intense flavor. And so some common varieties of dill include bouquet, and this is often used for seed production. And then there's mammoth or Long Island mammoth, and it's known for its high yields of leaves and seeds. And so each variety might exhibit a slightly different characteristic in their flowers. And so now I want to talk about snapdragons. And I know I'm just bouncing all over the place with these things. I'm not grouping them in all together, but the snapdragons are a popular garden plant that are known for their vividly colored flowers, and they range in hues of white and pale pastels to reds and purples. And the flowers are distinctive for their unique shape, which resembles a dragon's mouth and snaps open and closed when laterally squeezed, giving the plant its common name. And so the edible uses of the snapdragon flowers, they can be used for decorative purposes, and the blooms have a mild, somewhat bitter flavor and are primarily used in culinary applications for their aesthetic appeal rather than their taste. And so you can add them into salads for desserts or cocktails to add some color. You can freeze them in ice cubes, and you can also decorate them on cakes and pastries by using them fresh or crystallizing them. And so the recipes are pretty straightforward. Snapdragon salad, you put it in there with some mixed greens. You can add some other edible flowers such as nasturtiums, cucumbers, slices, cherry tomatoes, and a light vinaigrette. Um, and then everybody knows how to make ice cubes. So to preserve them, you can hang them, the flowers, upside down to dry in a dark place. And you can also preserve them by pressing them. So there's that. Maybe if you want to press them and put them on a cake after, not sure. And so I wanted to know, of course, as always, if the different varieties have different flavors. And the snapdragon flowers are generally considered to have a very mild, slightly bitter flavor across all different varieties. So there we go. There's not much of a difference. And now we're talking about another flower. I have to deal with these guys every night. And they're almost the bane of my existence. I mean, I love them. I haven't actually tried to eat any yet, but I got a little excited about radishes this year. And right now I have 6 varieties of radishes growing in the garden, and 4 varieties have bolted actually for quite a while, and they keep getting bigger and bigger. The other 2 varieties, the one is a Madras sweet pod, and it'll get really big, and it's for the pods, but it's not flowering yet. And so what I'm doing is I've been covering them with mesh, and I do a rotation. So every night, like when it's almost dark, so there'll be no pollinators out, I take off this netting, and that's really thin that no pollinators can get through, and I move it. So I have a rotation where I'm constantly letting one variety of radish out in the open for the pollinators to get it, and the other 4 are covered up. And it seemed like a good idea when I started it, but the plants keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I had to go get more mesh. And like it's fine when they're small, but then, imagine having to cover up this group of, I don't know, 20, 30 radishes, maybe more in some of the, and to have, so I'm over it. I don't think I'm not sure, but I always say I'm never doing this again, and then watch next year. I don't know what. But really, having 4 varieties going to seed has been too much. So I'm looking at the radish flowers every night. And I know they're edible. I didn't really think about the flowers as being edible. I know that the pods are being edible. But when I saw this flower, I was like, we have to talk about it, because I want to know, you know? And you have so many of them. Like when your radishes bolt, and maybe because I'm seed saving and I'm having large groupings go to seed, there's a lot of them. And they are flowering for a very long time, almost too long for my liking. It's like I feel like, is it ever going to end? But anyway, so the radish flowers, they bloom, of course, from the radish plant once it starts to bolt. And they are delicate small blossoms that are usually white or pink with a light purple tinge. And these flowers are not only edible, but are also quite tasty. And they offer a milder version of the spicy radish flavor that is familiar with the root. And so some of the edible uses are, they're primarily used as a garnish in culinary preparations due to their attractive appearance and spicy flavor, and they can add a peppery zest similar to that of arugula or mustard greens, though it's milder than the radish roots themselves. And so you can put them in salads. They can be sprinkled over salads to add a splash of color and a mild spicy kick. They can be added to soups and stews. And these flowers can be added as a garnish just before serving to enhance the presentation and flavor of light soups and stews. You can put them in wraps or sandwiches to introduce a subtle radish flavor and an appealing visual element, but probably not if you've got young kids, because they'd be like, what is this? And you can add them into decorate butter or cream cheese spreads. And doesn't that sound good? Mixing them in with some cream cheese. And that would be a very decorative and flavorful spread. And so some of the recipes that I found was the radish flour, herb butter, and you take half a cup of softened butter, half a cup of chopped radish flowers, 1 tablespoon of chopped chives, salt, and pepper to taste. And then in a bowl, you just combine everything together, mix until combined, refrigerate for at least an hour to allow the flavors to meld. And then you can serve it for bread or crackers or over steamed vegetables, or however else you want. And then, of course, we have the salad. Everybody knows how to make a salad. And now for preserving them, it's a little bit challenging due to their delicate nature. You can refrigerate them for a few days if you put them in between gently, or if you gently put them between moist paper towels and store them in an airtight container. And you can freeze them in ice cubes for drinks or decorative purposes. But I don't know, like, who wants radish in their drink? Not me. I don't know. I think that's just a little bit too out there. But who knows? Who knows? There could be someone who just loves that. Radish, radish in your drink. Okay, so what are we going to talk about now? I think the flavors. I always want to know about the flavors. And the flavors of radish flowers can vary slightly depending on the variety of the radish from which they come. The spicy varieties that are known for their sharp, peppery flavor, such as the cherry belle, they tend to produce flowers that have a more pronounced spicy note. And the milder varieties, like the French breakfast or the white icicle, may yield flowers that are subtler in flavor, offering a gentle, peppery taste that isn't overwhelming. And so now we're going to talk about hollyhock. And I'm trying to I have some black hollyhocks out in the garden. And silly me, I put the little guys in between some Jerusalem artichokes because I had so much space between the Jerusalem artichoke plants. And the Jerusalem artichokes have just grown so big, so fast. It's like, where did my hollyhocks go? So they're down in there somewhere, but I hope they make it up there this year. I hope they grow. And so hollyhocks are a popular garden plant known for their tall spikes adorned with large, colorful flowers. And these flowers are not only beautiful, but also edible. And they come in a variety of colors, including red, pink, yellow, white, purple, and I'm growing black. Yeah. And so the flowers of the hollyhock plant are edible, and they have a very mild, slightly vegetal flavor, and they're primarily used for their decorative properties in culinary applications. And so you can put them as an edible garnish on salads, desserts, and cakes. You can make tea out of them. The by drying them, and makes a mild, soothing tea. You can infuse the flowers into syrups or vinegars, and this will impart a subtle flavor and add their vibrant color to the infusion. And you can also crystallize them with egg whites and fine sugar for decorating desserts. And so some of the recipes I found: tea, salad, and preserving them, same as always. You can dry them, you can freeze them, you can put them in the ice cube trays with some water. And yeah, so that the hollyhocks are, a fantastic way to utilize their visual appeal, and they enhance the presentation of various dishes with their vibrant colors and mild flavor. And so I wanted to know if different varieties have different flavors. And hollyhock flowers generally have a mild, slightly vegetal taste across different varieties, with little significant variation in flavor. And this next one is a flower that I've never grown. I don't know very much about this flower, but I thought I would include it because maybe some of my listeners know, or maybe they have it growing. And it is the magnolia. So the edible flowers from the magnolia trees are unique and an aromatic addition to culinary dishes. They're not only just beautiful, but they offer a citrus-like, ginger, or spicy flavor depending on the variety, and this makes them an intriguing ingredient for both sweet and savory recipes. And some of the culinary uses for the magnolia flowers are that the petals can be added to infusions, and they are steeped in hot water to make fragrant tea, which can also be used as a flavoring agent in desserts. The fresh petals, particularly, I just thought I heard the goats up here. Koala, can you go see if the goats are outside? Koala, go see if the goats are outside. Go run and see, please. Koala, go see. Um, the fresh petals, particularly from the Magnolia grandiflora, adds a spicy kick to salads, and you can pickle them. Magnolia petals can be pickled in a salt and ume plum vinegar and used later in rice dishes as a garnish. And the petals can be candied or used in fresh baked goods for flavor and decoration. And you can boil the petals with sugar and water and create a syrup that is perfect for use in drinks or to be drizzled on desserts. And some of the recipes are magnolia petal tea. You can add honey or lemon to enhance the flavor. Candied magnolia petals, brush the petals with egg whites and coat with fine sugar and let them dry to create a sweet, crunchy treat. And then there's magnolia flower ice cream, and infuse the cream base with Koala, go outside. Go see if the please. Infuse the cream base with petals before churning to add a subtle floral taste to homemade ice cream. And you can preserve them by drying them, freeze them, or candying them. And there are different tastes between the varieties. And so the southern magnolia petals have a bitter taste and are best suited for infusions. And the star magnolia are milder and sweeter and are suitable for fresh culinary uses and desserts. And so I wanted to know a little bit about, where I am. Can I grow these guys? And so I found that the best varieties for cold climates, and we're looking at like a zone 4 and 5. And so you'd want to choose hardy varieties, like the star magnolia is very hardy and suitable for zone 4. And then there is the cobus magnolia, and it's also robust and grows well in zone 4 and 5. And then there is the Loebner magnolia, and it's a hybrid, and it's good for cooler climates and offers beautiful flowers. And so some of the and now we would get into the phlox, but I think I'm going to leave this for next week because I have a weird feeling about what is going on outside, and I think I need to go and check it out. So I hope everyone is enjoying their garden wherever they are, and that everything is growing well and feeding them well. And I will see you in the garden. Thank you for joining me for this episode of In the Garden with Susan. I hope you're enjoying the Flower Power series. And as we look at all the different edible flowers, you can find this podcast and others at Spotify, Podchaser, Radio Public. It's on my Rumble channel. It's on my YouTube channel. And you can always find it at my website at www.gardenfairybotanicals.ca. I look forward to chatting with you next week when we will continue on our journey through the edible flowers.